Hello and welcome to our training today. My name is Brian Norton and I'm with Easter Seals Crossroads, and I'm really excited to spend time with you today looking at the accessible technology that's at the WorkOne centers. Today we're going to look at a variety of different hardware and software technologies that are available for folks when they come into the WorkOne centers to get access to all the many great things that the WorkOnes offer for folks who are looking for employment. We've been partnering with the Department of Workforce Development for the past year, identifying what types of tools are necessary and would be needed for folks to have full access to everything there. Now, just to kind of clarify a few questions up front, and I've heard these questions as we've gone around the state training staff already, is really one of the big questions is, what is the workstation? And the workstation, when you look at this stuff, the workstation shouldn't be recognized as an assessment tool for folks. What we have here is a collection of assistive technology, hardware and software, as I said before, but there is a lot of different types of technologies out there for folks with disabilities, and this is just a sampling. These are things that, as we've worked with the Department of Workforce Development, as we've been in the WorkOnes, talking to people, talking to staff, these are some of the tools that we identified that would be helpful very, very specifically for the WorkOne centers. And it may not be appropriate for someone elsewhere, maybe at a workplace, in their home, at school, or wherever they might find themselves. So I guess the first thing I would say is, when you ask the question, what is this workstation? It's not an assessment tool, but it is a really good collection of assistive technology that's going to very specifically help people when they enter the WorkOne centers to get access to their computer systems and the wealth of knowledge and resources that they provide folks who are looking for jobs. So that's the first question we get. The next question is, who is this workstation for? Well, I would love to point out the very first thing is that the workstation is just like every other workstation you're going to find at the WorkOne. So if a person comes in and they have a disability, maybe they're in a wheelchair, and they need to get access to the systems and the computers that are there at the WorkOne, they could certainly use this workstation. But let's say someone comes in with what I would refer to as maybe a non-visible disability. Maybe it's a learning disability. Maybe they just have a hard time seeing. Maybe they have glasses and they just have a hard time seeing what's on the screen. Those folks could also use this workstation. But I would also then argue a little bit that really it's just, again, just like every other workstation. It has some specialized software and some specialized hardware on it. But it's no different. The same software that's on this computer, as far as what the WorkOne does, is just like every other workstation there. And so I would find it hard for folks, if there's someone waiting in line for a computer system, keeping them from using this computer while they wait. And so just want to kind of point that out as well. The other question I get a lot from staff is, I know everybody has very full plates. We do a lot. We're busy at work. We have a lot to do. And the question is always asked, what's expected of me with regard to this workstation? And what I would say is, the same things that you do to help other people on the computer system are going to be what you're doing with this workstation. As far as the adaptive hardware and software on the workstation, a few folks in your WorkOne, I believe most folks have gone through a basic training already with some of our staff that have been out to each center over the past 6 months, 9 months, and they've received some basic training. But as far as what's expected of you guys, if you would help folks just do what you normally do on the computer, direct them to the right types of tools and software. And then what we tried to do is make it fairly easy on you with what's on the computer to make it really quick and simple. If you do need to know something down and dirty with a piece of hardware or a piece of software that's adaptive in nature, we've tried to make that as easy as possible. So if you would take a look at the screen, we've put 2 folders out on the desktop of every accessible workstation. The first one is an accessible guides or quick guides folder, which goes over every piece of hardware and every piece of software and gives you kind of a quick reference guide. It's a very quick read. In fact, I'll go ahead and bring one up for you right now. If I bring up quick guides, I'll open up that folder. And under here, you're going to find a couple of really helpful things. So the first one I'm going to do is look up the hardware guide underneath here. And it's going to bring it up, and it's going to show you what's here. Oops, I'm going to go real fast through it. What you're going to find is every piece of hardware, whether it be the monitor on the workstation, the keyboard on the workstation, any of the other adaptive tools on the workstation, it's going to first tell you what it is. Then it's going to tell you what it does and who it can help. So if you have a person who comes into the WorkOne with low vision, they may need access to the 24-inch monitor that's already there, and it's going to tell you how to make any adjustments, if any adjustments are necessary. It's going to tell you the folks that would benefit from the technology, and it's going to essentially give you the picture of the technology itself to kind of help you identify where it is on the workstation and what it is. Of course, here's the monitor. We have all the guides for every piece of technology are here, and we're going to get into each piece individually here in just a bit, but you can kind of see what we're looking at. If I come down a little bit, you can kind of see we have the table, so on and so forth. So we've put really easy to use tutorials on the workstation, right on the desktop, for you guys to have a very quick reference guide to be able to quickly help people. Again, knowing that you guys have a lot to do already. The very same thing with software happens. This is what the hardware manuals will look like. The software manuals will give you essentially almost like a top 10 list, the top 10 things you should know about the software themselves. And again, we're going to dig into the software here in a little while. So again, when you think about the question of what's expected of me, it's really to help people as you normally would, and then there's going to be some special tools on this particular workstation that just gives people greater access. And we've hopefully been able to kind of really simplify, here are the things that you really need to know about this technology. We've also been out to each WorkOne and kind of gone over it with everybody, so hopefully everybody has a real basic understanding of what those tools are and where to go with them with people as they enter the WorkOne centers. So now that we've covered some of the basic questions with regard to the workstation, and I'm sure there are going to be more, and I'll give you resources for where you can find more information at the end of the day. But now that we've covered some of those basic questions, we're going to jump into each and every piece, talk about the software and the hardware. Starting with the hardware, we're going to talk about those tools that help people get access to the workstation, the hardware pieces first, and then jump into software here in a bit. So the first thing I want to do is kind of talk about the workstation design as a whole. And this is going to maybe vary. What I have up here isn't necessarily what you have at the WorkOnes, but they'll have the very same tools and the very same features that these things have here. The first thing is this is a public access workstation. And so we had to kind of take a different concept as we designed this because we wanted tools that could survive a long time, would have some shelf life to them. And so some of the tools that we identified are already available on people's computers as they come. Anything Windows 7 and above will have many of the tools, many of the software packages that are on here. We tried to then design the workstation with ease of use in mind, so that as people would come in, they could easily get access to it, but that as staff worked with folks and had to maintain and keep up the workstation, we wanted it to be easy for them. We tried to make sure that there was no plug-and-play devices as well. We all know the trouble that people have when they have to plug in a different keyboard all the time. You know, unplugging a keyboard, plugging the new one in, rebooting the computer so it gets recognized. Well, nowadays we have USB technology. We can have multiple devices plugged into one computer and they all work simultaneously. So we tried to identify devices that wouldn't require any rebooting or anything like that, that they were all plug-and-play enabled. So we did that as well. And then we wanted to identify tools that would reach a wide variety of people. People have different types of disabilities. That could be a vision disability. could be a cognitive, could be physical. And we wanted to make sure that as folks came into those WorkOne centers, they would get access to all of the great things that the WorkOnes do, their computer systems specifically, and have tools there for them no matter what their disability is. So I call it the 20-80 rule. You take 20% of the technology that's out there to meet about 80% of the disability needs that are out there. And again, we couldn't meet all folks' needs with these tools, but you're going to hit a wide variety of folks. You're going to hit most of them. And so hopefully we'll be able to address needs whether they have low vision, whether they're blind, whether they have an intellectual developmental disability, a cognitive disability, or a physical impairment as well. So everything that we go over today was designed very specifically for the WorkOnes, and we wanted it to be universal for lots of folks, to meet lots of needs. But again, realizing that we're not going to be able to meet every need that comes through the door. The first thing that we did to kind of help get us to that point was we wanted to identify a very flexible workstation. Now, every one of the WorkOne centers should have a height adjustable desk, and those desks look a lot like this desk, maybe a different color, maybe a different configuration. Some of them are single surface workstations, some of them are dual surface workstations where the keyboard area raises and lowers independently from the monitor area. There were a variety of different workstations out there, and we decided to keep the ones that made sense. So there's a variety of those workstations, but they all do the very same thing for folks. They're height adjustable workstations. They offer large work surfaces for folks, and they have very easy to use controls. In fact, most of the workstations have a control on the right side of the front of the workstation, and they're simply just buttons. And they're either chain-driven adjustability, where there's a chain inside that will move and raise that desk up and down, or they're pneumatically adjustable, where there's some pneumatics in there, it's hydraulics, and it lifts it up very quietly up and down the whole surface. This particular desk is not height adjustable, but it's very similar in nature to size and scope of what you guys have there at the WorkOnes. But again, very easy to use. You can adjust them up and down. And the reason we want them to be adjustable up and down is you may have a person who comes in a wheelchair. And all wheelchairs, many wheelchairs are different heights, different sizes for different people. We all come in different shapes and sizes. And we wanted that workstation to be adjustable up and down to make sure that when they're using the computer, it's properly positioned in front of them. And so that's simply just a push of the button up or down. We also recognize that there are folks with back impairments. They have a difficult time sitting for prolonged periods of time, or have a difficult time standing for prolonged periods of time, and that's going to offer them the adjustability very quickly to go from a sitting position all the way up to a standing position. And so we wanted to kind of offer a flexible work surface for them to work from. The next thing is we decided to also put in an ergonomic chair, because again, we recognize that sitting and positioning is very, very important for folks. This is just an office chair. Your office chair, again, may look a little different than this one does. But ergonomic office chairs offer a lot of the same benefits. They're made by different manufacturers, so they look a little bit different. The first thing is the back of your chair will adjust up and down. So you can take the back and bring it up, bring it down, making sure that you're getting that lumbar support in the right area. So again, if you have a back impairment, you may want to adjust the back of your seat up or down to make sure you get that proper support in the lower to mid part of your back. On your chairs as well, you're going to find height adjustable armrests too. And so to be able to adjust those up and down, get those at the proper height so that when you're sitting, you can sit very comfortably with your arms resting and hopefully being positioned above the keyboard so that you can type more effectively. The other thing that ergonomic office chairs do is they offer you the ability to change your seat pan. And again, some of your chairs may or may not offer that, but there is some flexibility in some of the offices. The flexibility with being able to adjust your seat pan is to make sure that as you're seated, you feel really comfortable. And so the seat pan will oftentimes move in or out, and then other times it'll tilt forward or backwards. The reason that you have adjustability in the seat pan is very simple. When you're seated, you want to have positioned yourself in a seated position. I'm going to go ahead and sit in the chair. And as I'm seated, I don't want the seat too far out where it's cutting into the back of my knees and cutting off circulation. I want that seat to be in or out where it feels comfortable for me. Not too far out, not too far out where it's cutting off circulation in the bottom of my legs, but also not too far back where I'm feeling like I'm falling out of the workstation itself. And so that seat pan adjustability is really, really important. And lastly, but not least, there is height adjustability as well. So the seat can come up or it can go down, making sure that they're seated at a proper height. Again, all goes back to we all come in different shapes and sizes. A 6'5" individual will want the chair adjusted differently than someone who's 5'4", 5'6", and in between. And so that would be the adjustable chair that comes with the workstation and couples very nicely with the height adjustable workstation itself. The other thing you're going to know is we have put on the workstations a keyboard. And the keyboard is a large print keyboard, but it's easy to note when you look at the keyboard, it looks no different than the standard keyboard that's on every other computer in the WorkOne. It's a standard Windows keyboard. It's a QWERTY style keyboard, and they name that because the top keys over here are QWERTY, Q-W-E-R-T-Y. But you're going to notice something very unique about this one. We mentioned it's large print, and if you look at the keys, they're much, much bigger than what's found on a standard keyboard. Oftentimes they're 5 or 6 times larger. This one happens to be significantly larger, but for folks with low vision, it makes a big difference for them. It helps them be able to see the keyboard as a person normally would. The reason why we went with a large print keyboard was very specifically for folks with low vision, but again, for someone who doesn't need any keyboard help, it has the same keys, it has the same layout, there's nothing different than from this keyboard to the other keyboards other than being large print. So it has and kind of does serve a dual purpose in that. So that's the large print keyboard. We have up here today a 55-inch screen, but what you're going to find on every workstation is a 24-inch monitor. A 24-inch monitor, by default, makes things bigger. When you're working on a 19-inch monitor or a 21-inch monitor, things are at a fairly nice size. But again, if you have low vision, you're going to want something that's bigger because the bigger the monitor, the larger information automatically appears to them. And so, again, I have a 55-inch monitor up here, or TV up here. At your workstations, you're going to find a 24-inch monitor, and we wanted to find some middle road there with a monitor that gave enough size, some size to what's being displayed on the monitor, so that they weren't using what was found elsewhere, which was a little bit smaller. So for those folks that do have low vision, they could see things a little bit better. So we do have a 24-inch monitor located on the workstation as well. And you're going to note a little later on, we're going to talk about screen magnification software, and that larger monitor is going to play a big role in what happens with that screen magnification software. So just keep that in mind as we move forward. We also put articulating arm supports, sorry about that. These are ErgoRest articulating arm supports. And these are one of the most popular things that we recommend when we do public access workstation when we look at those types of workstations. What these are, they have an adjustable arm in the middle so they can go up or down. They also have a frame clamp on the bottom, which allows you to be able to attach it to a flat surface. And then they have a little armrest over here where your arm can rest inside of it. One of the things that we find a lot for folks is if you have a repetitive stress type of injury, if you have any kind of like carpal tunnel, ulnar tunnel, any of those kinds of things, articulating arm supports can make a big difference for you as you use the computer. I would even extend that off to folks who have spasticity or tremors, because as they push down their arm into the armrest, it allows them to gain some bit of stability as they use the computer as well. And I really think for just about everybody who uses the computers, these types of devices could be helpful. Because one of the things that people don't really recognize very readily when they're using the computer is it takes a lot of effort, strain, and stress on your forearms, your upper arms, your shoulders, the back of your neck, all of those areas to be able to hold your hands up above the keyboard for prolonged periods of time. So folks in the clerical industry, call centers, other kinds of places, you hear stories all the time about them developing repetitive stress types of injuries, and that's why, because they're sitting there at their desks trying to hold their hand up above the keyboard for long periods of time each day, and that's creating a lot of strain and stress and cutting off blood flow. And so what these do is these allow you to actually attach them to the desk. So if I adjust this little frame clamp out, I can attach it to the desk if I get it big enough here. And then once on the desk, they'll attach, and I've got some adjustment up or down. I can make that taller or lower, and then I can simply rest my arm in that. And that gives you an amazing feel of almost effortlessly holding your hands up above the keyboard while you type, reducing and eliminating a lot of that strain and stress that happens on your shoulders, in your neck, in your back, and other areas. So articulating arm supports. There are 2 of these at every workstation, so that you can use them with both arms if you need to. Really a great device. And again, if you check out the quick guide, you'll find more information about all that software. The next one is every workstation has a standard mouse on it. I don't have a standard mouse up here with me today. But a standard mouse is a standard mouse is a standard mouse. And the reason it has a standard mouse on the workstation is that for those that don't need an accommodation with using a mouse, they're not going to want to use some weird kind of funky mouse to be able to use the computer. They're going to want what's found on every computer. They're going to want that standard mouse, and so we wanted to include a standard mouse on the computer itself. Other mouse options that we put on here, this is a Kensington Expert mouse. This is one of my favorite mice because it allows folks who have limited dexterity and fine motor control in their hands to be able to use the mouse better. A lot of us take for granted some of that dexterity and fine motor control that it takes to be able to operate a standard mouse when you start breaking down what has to happen. So when you're using a mouse and you're trying to use the single click, double click, drag features of a mouse, let's just use that for an example. When you're dragging an icon or a document across your desktop, it requires you to be able to move the mouse somewhere on the screen, lots of hand-eye coordination going on there. Click on a button. While you're holding that mouse, click on a button, hold that button down while you then move the mouse across your desktop, hand-eye coordination going on again until it gets to where you want to let it be, and then you have to let go of that button. A lot of steps in that process, and for folks who really struggle with dexterity and fine motor control, they're going to have difficulty using a standard mouse to make that happen. What is nice about a Kensington Expert mouse is it allows you to break those button functions up. You're going to notice that it has 4 buttons around the ball in the middle. Those 4 buttons are programmable. So oftentimes when we walk in and we go to a public access workstation, we'll set one of the buttons up to be your standard click, your standard left click. We'll do the next button over on the top right to be your standard right click button. And then we'll go over down here and we'll assign the bottom button to maybe be a double click. So if I need to double click something, I don't have to hit the button twice very quickly. I just have to hit it once and it simulates a double click. I can't tell you how many times I go in and work with folks, especially folks who are a bit older, and maybe they're not as comfortable with the mouse, and I find on their desktop they've renamed every icon on the desktop, and it's because they weren't able to double click fast enough and they ended up thinking they were typing into a document rather than renaming the icon on the desktop. So that's oftentimes a challenge. So a single click down here would give you a double click feature. And then over here you're able to set the drag button. And the drag button will allow you to move the mouse across your screen, get it positioned over top of an icon, let go of the ball, click the button to enable the drag feature. Then I can move it back across my screen. And when I get to where I want to go, I click the button again and it would drop it there. It separates out the steps needed for that drag feature to happen, which is really helpful for folks who struggle with using the mouse because of those dexterity and fine motor control issues. The one thing I always tell folks who manage and maintain the workstations is on a Kensington Expert mouse, one of the things that can happen is that the ball can get removed. So it's important to keep your eye to make sure that that ball is always there for folks to use. I don't think a lot of people know that it's removable, but it is. And we just ask folks, keep an eye on that, make sure people aren't stealing it, those kinds of things. But that ball just kind of rests in the middle of those buttons and allows you to be able to use the mouse more effectively. If you have difficulty using a standard mouse, have any type of hand-eye coordination issues or dexterity and fine motor control issues. So that's the Kensington Expert mouse. So the next piece of hardware is also pretty standard on most computers, but really helpful in this particular application. Again, we mentioned that this is a WorkOne public access workstation. And because it's public access, a lot of folks aren't going to want the folks next to them or across the room or anywhere in the WorkOne Center to hear the things that they're working on. And so we provided a headset. So it's got a microphone on it. It's also got earmuffs so that you can not only hear things on the computer, but you can also then shut out a lot of the other noise that's in and around. It helps you be able to focus on what you're doing better. We'll be talking about a couple of applications coming up. One is called JAWS. That stands for Job Access with Speech. But that is a screen reading technology for folks who are blind or very low vision. We'll also be talking about a program called Natural Reader. Natural Reader is a scan and read system or a text-to-speech system for folks who have learning difficulties or maybe what I would refer to as a print disability, where you have difficulty reading and that reading comprehension is challenging as well. Those two applications obviously put out speech. And so having a headset where you can listen to that speech privately is going to be helpful. We'll also be talking about a program that's built into your computer called Windows Speech Recognition Software. And that's where the microphone on this particular headset would become useful for you. So the headset becomes a really vital key piece of the puzzle when you kind of link not only what we're trying to do with the hardware, but also what we're trying to do with the software. So keep in mind, we'll talk about JAWS, we'll talk about Natural Reader, we'll talk about Dragon here in a little bit. So those are those software packages. And again, it does come with a microphone. The last piece of technology is this one over here. This is a Cctv, and I'm going to kind of pull this out front and center because I want you guys to be able to see this. A Cctv is one of the most commonly used devices for folks who have low vision. One of the biggest challenges they have is getting access to printed material and to be able to see printed material. Well, what this does is this has a essentially it's a camera with a monitor, and that camera is up underneath the monitor. I'm going to raise it up so you can kind of see what's underneath there. You're going to kind of see this little bottom section underneath here, I believe. Maybe I can even rock that back a little bit. This little bottom section has a camera in it. It also has two lights that focus down on the top of the paperwork, so that when it's doing that, that image that the camera is capturing comes up on a monitor on top. And when using a CCTV, a person can put their document on what's called an XY table on the very bottom. You'll see the image of the document up here, and then you're able to move that XY table back and forth over top of that document to be able to read anything that's on that paper. Now, for a person who has low vision, when it's magnifying to this degree, maybe it's not magnifying enough for you. So all CCTVs allow you to magnify and increase what you see. So I'm going to go ahead and turn the middle knob. That will increase what is being shown on the screen, magnify it for you. And so that now when I get to size 10, that is 10 times zoom. Now I'm seeing things much, much larger, and I'm able to maybe get that into my usable vision. Maybe I can still use my vision to be able to read those printed materials. Another thing it will do is it'll allow you to go ahead and change the contrast as well. Right now it's black text on white background, which is kind of your standard, as if the camera's just looking at that document. On the left side of the knob in the middle, you have a mode button. And if I click that mode button, it's going to do some things to my text. Right now I'm enhanced positive, and I'm not sure if you're able to see this on the video, but it just makes things really crystal clear for me. It actually finds that text, boldens the lettering, actually whitens the background to make things stand out a little bit better. If I press it again, it turns it around. It reverses the contrast, making it white text on a black background. And that is really, really helpful for a lot of folks with low vision, because what happens with a white background, there is so much light emitting from the screen that it kind of drains out the text that's being shown as well. So being able to reverse contrast is really helpful. And I believe this one also comes with a variety of other color contrasts. So we've got yellow on blue, black on yellow, yellow on black, back to regular color view. The other thing I find really helpful for this particular device is that it does come with this XY table. We mentioned that when you put paper on it, you can move it up or down, left and right, to be able to read what's there. But imagine if you're trying to fill out applications, you're trying to fill out the documentation that's in the WorkOne centers. That can be really challenging for someone with low vision if they're not able to use a device like this. And with the XY table, you have quite a bit of region here to be able to get your hand up and underneath to be able to sign on the dotted line. You can fill out applications using something like this as well. And for that very reason, for privacy issues and other things like that, we put the actual XY table on a movable cart, and that's the black cart underneath here. Again, your cart may look a little different than this one, but they all serve the very same purpose. The cart is on wheels, and I'm not sure exactly where your WorkOne Center will store the CCTV. Oftentimes it's right next to the disability workstation. But what's nice about this is it is on a cart and you can move it around. You can move it around to the WorkOne. You can move it into your office if you need to, if you're working with someone one-on-one, so that you guys can have a private conversation and you can fill out documents privately as well. There's no reason for it to be stationary out with the workstation. It can be easily brought in and around the WorkOne Center to your offices and anywhere you want to go to be able to work with people privately. There is one plug. That's the nice thing about this. It only requires one plug, so it's easy to unplug from the wall. And when you get it to your office, hopefully there's a plug that you're able to get to be able to plug it into. But once it's plugged in, you're going to be able to see things in large print and allow that person better access to the things that are around them. The other thing about this is it is ergonomic. A little bit more ergonomic than some CCTVs. Gives you some adjustability with the monitor there to be able to bring it down. I kind of equate it to when you go to the movie theater and you sit up in the front row and you're always looking up. That's going to make a kink in your neck. So if it's always up above where the camera is, that makes it really hard. That hand-eye coordination becomes more difficult, and it's going to hurt your neck after a while. So being able to bring it down in front of you while you're reading things can be a really helpful tool for folks. The other thing on here, just to kind of point out, sometimes when you're working with documents, and depending on the lighting in the room, the lighting in this room is a little bit dark. So I've actually have the two lights on. I don't know if you can kind of see it shining on my hand down here. I have the ability to go turn that off, and over on the left-hand side there's a light switch. And if I turn that off, notice the light isn't shining anymore. Depending on the light in the room, you can turn that on or off. It's just a switch. So I'm going to turn that back on. The other thing you can do to help with those lighting situations is on the other side there's a slider bar. And that slider bar allows you to move it left and right. If I move it to the right, it makes things brighter. If I move it to the left, it makes things darker. So whatever my visual impairment is, whatever my needs are with color and contrast, I have some flexibility built into the Cctv itself to make things easier for me to see. And that is the Cctv that we have. It's called it's from Enhanced Vision. It's called a Merlin Elite, and it's a fairly nice piece of technology. And again, one of the more commonly used devices for folks with low vision in their home, at the workplace, in schools, really anywhere. So we're glad to be able to offer that at the WorkOne centers as well. All right, so today we are going to start taking a look at the software that's on the WorkOne Accessible Workstations. And as I mentioned earlier, we talked about those two folders that are located on the desktop. On the desktop, you're going to find a folder that says Quick Guides. I'm going to go ahead and open up Quick Guides and show you what's in here. We've tried to include some helpful tools for folks. So the first thing you're going to find is at the very top you see an accessible hardware overview one-pager, an accessible software overview one-pager. You'll also find a hardware quick reference guide area. And then there are 4 documents down below that talk about quick reference guides with regard to the software, which we're going to be talking about next. While we're here, I just want to take a quick moment to jump into some of these documents to kind of show you what they look like. So if we go into Accessible Hardware Overview, the one-pager, these are some things that I would encourage everybody to print out and keep at their workstations with them, so that if folks come into the WorkOnes and they need help, maybe there's a particular tool that would be helpful. This just gives you a very quick, easy to use, quick way to look and find out what kinds of tools are available and who it might help. And so you could then point the person in the right direction and be able to pull out the right tools, maybe at that accessible workstation. So something that's really easy, user-friendly to use, and something that's really easy to kind of find and get your hands on. Quick down and dirty, quick look at what type of technologies at those workstations. The very same thing is true of the accessible software one-page overview. If you just want to briefly understand what the software is and what it's for, this is a quick way to kind of look at the 4 software packages that we've identified, one being Windows Speech Recognition, the other one being Natural Reader 13, Windows Magnifier, and JAWS for Windows. Kind of just tells you a quick and easy way to look and see what they are and the folks that they'll help. And so definitely take a look at those. And again, I encourage you to print those off if you can and keep those at your desk as a quick reference guide for you. We've also gone in and made a little bit more in-depth look at what those options are. We talked about the hardware. We took a look at this earlier towards the beginning of our session, but if we bring up the full view again, this is kind of a little bit more complete overview or quick guide, reference guide for the hardware that's at the workstation. This provides large pictures and really answers a couple of really basic questions. What is it and who it will help? And then thirdly, if there are things that can be adjusted, it's going to show you how to adjust those. So here we have the table. It talks about what that table's for. It talks about the different features of the table and shows you where the controls are for adjusting it. Looking at the next piece of hardware, because this is a little bit more involved, kind of give you a picture of some of the things that do have some extra adjustments to it. So here are ErgoRest arm supports. Tells you what it is, who it will help. And again, this has some movable components and different ways to adjust it. So it talks about how to adjust it and how to clamp it to the desk itself. So we get a little bit more involved in these bigger guides, but definitely take a look at those and keep those in mind. So the next thing I want to show you is the software itself. On the software itself, we're going to look at the first program called Natural Reader. And Natural Reader is a program for folks who have learning difficulties, specifically in the area of print, being able to read. Maybe it may be maybe they don't know how to read. Maybe they need assistance with reading for some reason. Maybe they have dyslexia and just have a difficult time with being able to identify words and read words and identify characters and symbols and other kinds of things. So I'm going to go ahead and minimize this, go back out to the desktop, and we mentioned that AT folder. In that AT folder, there is a icon for Natural Reader 13. I'm going to go ahead and open that up. It's going to go ahead and load up the software for me. So the first thing, to be able to start up and use Natural Reader, the first thing is you need to be able to go to that folder, open it up, and it's going to bring up this particular window. And in this window, you can have text read to you. So if I hit play here, it's going to read the text and give you kind of a brief overview of what it is and tells you how to use it. So I'm going to go ahead and hit play.
Text-to-speech software. Natural Reader is a professional text-to-speech program that converts any written text into spoken words. In other words, it allows you to listen to text instead of reading them on the screen. It has never been so easy to use a text-to-speech program. With just one click on Control and F9, your computer will read any selected text aloud in a clear and natural-sounding voice. For your convenience, add-in toolbars are provided. Natural Reader also has the ability to convert any written text into an MP3 or WAV audio.
Go ahead and stop it there. So you're going to get some basic information on what it does. And right now, you probably heard Charles, which is a British voice. I can come in and change that voice. And I'm going to go ahead and do an offline voice with Anna, and we're going to say OK. And then you're going to notice the voice change that happened. So if I hit play.
Welcome to Natural Reader text-to-speech software. Natural Reader is a professional text-to-speech program that converts any written text into spoken words. In other words, it allows you to listen to text instead of reading them on the screen. It has never been so easy to use a text-to-speech program.
So you get a little bit of a chance to adjust the voice, making it either a man's voice, a woman's voice, giving it a certain accent. I would just encourage people to use Microsoft Anna. Seems to be a good voice. It's pretty clear, and it's pretty easy to use. The next thing you would do is, as we worked with the WorkOne centers, we noticed there were lots and lots of PDF files, and then also web-based materials. And so if you come over here and you click on Open, you can search the computer. I'm actually going to go to My Documents. Give it a second to catch up to me. We're going to go and click on Open, and then we're going to come in here and pick out a document. So let's bring up our Accessible Hardware Overview one-pager. So when we click on that, say Open, it's going to go ahead and bring it up into my document, and now I can have those things read to me.
Accessible Hardware Overview Outline. Infinity Adjustable Workstation. This workstation is a height adjustable workstation that allows the user to independently raise and lower the workstation surfaces with an easy-to-use switch located at the front of the workstation. This workstation will be helpful for persons who are in a wheelchair or those who have musculoskeletal issues that require periodic movement to control pain. Articulating.
So go ahead and pause that. And so again, Natural Reader is just a very simple text-to-speech program. And so any document, any PDF file, any text document, any really form that you have, as long as you have it in an electronic format and they can get access to it from the Accessible Workstation, whether it be via a USB drive or in the My Documents folder, they can simply quickly pull that up, have it read to them, and it really kind of gives them a multimodal learning environment. So not only are they hearing what's being read, but they're seeing it in that bouncing ball effect where things are highlighted and the word it reads is highlighted at the same time it's read. Really does help folks who have learning disabilities. Just a great, great tool. The other thing I'll point out as well is there's a speed button up here, a speed slider, I guess you can call it. You can slow that down or you can speed that up. Make it any speed that you want for the person, whatever they can do a good job with comprehension at. It does default to 0, so a lot of times I just kind of leave it there at 0 for folks. The other thing I'll show you as well is if you go into your Google, Chrome, or your other browsers, and we can go over here to WorkOne Centers in Indiana. I'm going to go ahead and go to a DWD website, so WorkOne Locations, and I'm going to bring up the website, and I can hit this Natural Reader button in my browser as well, and it's going to go ahead and take information from that screen and read it to me. So it does process it through the web. So it does take a second for it to pop back up, but it'll bring it up into kind of a web viewer for myself. Give me a play button, and then I can simply hit the play button to read that text back.
Regional map. Use the map to the right to select your region. Region 1 Jasper, Lake, LaPorte, Newton, Porter, Pulaski, and Stark counties. Region 2 Elkhart, Fulton, Kosciuszko, Marshall, and St. Joseph counties region.
I can hit pause to read that. So this particular software package works really well on either the web or with just printed materials. And it's very simple again. You can come back to your My Documents folder from your computer and simply read really any text on the computer. So let me close out of my web browser again and go back to the main program. So here we are again. Very easy to use. You open up the program, you pick a file by clicking on Open, it goes to your My Documents folder, open up any file that you want read, it'll read it to you. If you want to read something on the web, you can just simply open up your browser and there is a link for Natural Reader on the toolbar there. So that is Natural Reader software. Another program I wanted to spend time with is to look at the magnifier. So on every computer that's Windows 7 or above, they have a Windows magnifier. And we've decided to identify this as the magnifier that we would use for folks as they use the computer. One of the challenges we'll have on this video is that the magnifier on the computer itself doesn't translate very well through the video, but you're going to at least be able to see the menus that I use as we're looking at this. So this is a little magnifier menu, and I'll kind of bring it down. Let me bring it off. Give me a second while I turn off my color inversion on my computer so I can help walk you through this a little bit. So this is the magnifier menu that will come up. You have some very basic tools out here on the top. The first one is your plus and minus buttons. The minus does what you think it would do. It's going to decrease magnification. Your plus key is going to increase magnification. So if I would start to increase it, what I see on my screen isn't necessarily what you see on your screen, but my screen is starting to get larger. And we mentioned before the 24-inch monitor on the computer. The reason we went with a larger screen monitor on the computer was because as you get to larger levels of magnification, something happens. You start seeing less of the screen. And when you see less of the screen, you need a bigger monitor to limit or to allow you to see more of the screen at larger levels of magnification than you would otherwise. And so that's why we went with a larger screen monitor. These plus and minus keys allow you to adjust the magnification up or down. Also out here on the menu system, you have something called views, and it allows you to have several different view options. Right now, we're magnifying in full screen view, and I know you're having difficulty seeing that on the video, but what's happening is my entire screen is getting larger. I see everything in large print on my screen. If I moved it to a lens view, the lens view puts up a magnifying lens. It's like going to CVS and grabbing one of the little handheld magnifiers that's on their shelves and holding it up and over top of your computer monitor. So that's like dragging a magnifying lens across the computer so that wherever my mouse goes, whatever's near my mouse gets magnified, and whatever's not near my mouse stays the same size as it always was. There's a lens view. The next view is called docked view. And what that allows you to do is it allows you to give you separate areas of the screen. This is great for folks who want to see things in context because what it does is it separates your screen into two different views. So at the very top of your screen, the top half of your screen is a magnified view. So I see everything in magnified view. On the bottom half of my screen is what I would normally see. So the icons look the same as if no magnification was ever on. And so as I move my mouse on the top, I'm also moving around the bottom area of the screen. And so that on the top, whatever receives magnification or is near my mouse on the top is magnified, and in the bottom, there is no magnification. A great example of where this would be helpful is if you're in a document and you're filling something out on the top left-hand side of the screen, which references something on the bottom right-hand side of the screen, you would be able to see things in context. You would be able to know on the top half what's there, and on the bottom half, you'd be able to know that you're in the bottom right side of the screen or the right side of the page. Again, a bit hard to explain since you're not being able to see it on your side of the computer, but that is what would happen. The other option is something called, if you hit that little gear, you're able to see all the magnifier options, and I'll drag that menu up a little bit. When you look at the magnifier options, you get to change some different settings. And again, many of these settings people will never change, but they're there if it would be helpful for somebody. So right now, that little slider bar at the top changes how much the magnifier changes when you hit that plus key. So right now, it goes up in increments of 25%. Well, I can increase that so that it'll go from 1 times to 1.5 to 2 to 2.5 to 3, so on and so forth. Or I can decrease it back to what it typically is set at, which would go from 1 times magnification to 1.25 to 1.5 to 1.75 to 2 times. So you've got some adjustability there with the magnifier. The other thing is turning on color inversion. We took a look at the Cctv earlier, and we showed you how to change the text color. So text typically comes black on white, so black text on a white background. But we mentioned how that's really sometimes challenging for folks with low vision because that white background kind of washes everything else out. Same thing when you're looking at your computer. Sometimes the brightness of your background can really make it hard to see the text that you're trying to view and read. And so color inversion will actually invert all the colors. Just basically pick, if it's a blue, it's going to turn it to orange because that's the opposite color on the color wheel. So every color on your computer gets changed to a different color based on where it is on the color wheel. A couple of these features, it's just tracking features. As you can imagine, if you're looking at something kind of blown up on your screen, you want it to track things. You want to be able to track things across the screen. So we definitely want it to follow our mouse pointer. And we probably also want it to follow the keyboard focus. So if we're typing and we're in a very large magnified view, as we're getting to the edge of the screen, we want it to continue to go off the edge of the screen and follow me there because I want to be able to see what I'm typing and when I'm typing it. So that's the real down and dirty with screen magnification. Hopefully you'll take some opportunity to go in and play with that a little bit. It's a very simple program. It offers some basic magnification features for folks. I will say that there are some more sophisticated screen magnification systems out there. However, those screen magnification programs cost quite a bit of money. And this particular one is actually just built in. And the benefit for folks is if they're coming into the WorkOne Center and they're using the computers there and they find this tool helpful, 9 times out of 10, depending on the age of their computer system, they're going to go home and be able to find it on their own computer and then know how to use it. So that is the Windows Magnifier. The next program is speech recognition software. And I'm sure we've all seen speech recognition these days. Speech recognition is getting more and more popular on smartphones and mobile devices. Well, since Windows 7, they have been including speech recognition software on Windows computers. And I'm here to say I've been working in the disability field, working with folks who have challenges getting access to the keyboard and the mouse for many, many years. And the speech recognition that they include in Windows is pretty good. It's also built in, and so it doesn't cost anything. And as we look at long-term costs for the software here in the WorkOnes, we wanted something that would be easily maintained and upgradable, and obviously built-in software makes a lot of sense. So the speech recognition software, I'll go ahead and open that up. It brings up a menu system, and it asks you to go ahead and start speech recognition. And when I start speech recognition, I'm going to be able to go ahead and really operate the entire computer without anything but my voice. However, oftentimes we do have people use the keyboard and the mouse if they are able to, in conjunction or along with Dragon, to give them a better method of input to the computer. So if I hit the microphone button on the menu, I'm going to go ahead and try to use this and see if we can't get it to work well for us. Open Microsoft Word. Hello, how are you today? Question mark. Stop listening. Notice it does make mistakes, as with all speech recognition software. It doesn't really matter what speech recognition software you use. There are some speech recognition software packages that are better than others, but they will make mistakes. This is the first time this particular computer has ever listened to me or heard my voice, and so you can recognize that it did a fairly good job at recognizing everything. And the great thing about speech recognition software is it learns as you go. So the more you get to speak to it, the more consistent you are with the software, the better it's going to be as you use it more and more. So let me go ahead and bring it back up again, and we're going to try a few more dictation options. New paragraph. $1,465,662.32. New paragraph. Testing 1, 2, 3, period. I would like to get ice cream today, question mark. Backspace. Period. I hope the cold weather outside will turn sunny soon, period. Stop listening. So if you could imagine, for folks who have difficulty with using the computer with the keyboard or a mouse, having some sort of voice input software can be really useful for them, especially as they're trying to enter text into the computer. You can also, as you saw when I opened up Microsoft Word with my voice, you do have some voice commands that can be said to be able to open programs, close programs, navigate the menu systems. I'm going to go ahead and now close Microsoft Word using my voice. So let's just watch that happen. Show numbers. 13. Okay. Show numbers. 3. Okay. Stop listening. And so I was able to then close Microsoft Word with my voice. Now you're probably wondering, where do you learn all of these different commands? Well, within the menu system here, I'm going to go ahead and move this out of my way, but when you're in the menu here, you have a way to be able to take a speech tutorial, and it's going to tell you and help you learn some of the basic commands and some of the ways to dictate. I probably wouldn't spend a lot of time teaching folks to use it at the WorkOne Center. I might point them to it, I might show them it, maybe they can take more time to learn it at home. But for those folks that can use the keyboard and mouse, definitely using the keyboard and the mouse in conjunction with speech recognition gives you greater computer access, because if you can use the mouse, there are just some things that are more quickly done with the mouse and with the keyboard than otherwise. The next program I want to spend time in is JAWS. And so I'm going to come into JAWS. I would like to point out JAWS is a screen reader. For folks that don't have vision, they are blind, or have very, very low vision. They have a really difficult time seeing. JAWS is a text-to-speech system, but it's very robust. It gives people access to the entire computer simply by keystrokes. So with JAWS, you would not use the mouse. And what you're going to find is most people who use JAWS or need a screen reader have probably received training in it someplace else, whether that was in high school or middle school, K-12 environment, some sort of, maybe in college. If they've, computers are such a part of schooling these days that a lot of folks, if they need a screen reader, they've probably had experience with a screen reader before. Again, we're not trying to make anybody an expert with the software. We just want them to know and see the types of access that is possible. So that if someone comes in and they need JAWS and they need training, this is where you can come in and give them basic access to that software. So I'm going to try to open up JAWS here. And JAWS does have some trouble with online video conferencing software, so we're going to see if this will work for us.
JAWS Home Views Edition. Demo mode active. Use update authorization in the help menu to activate. Items view multi-select list box. JAWS 16.0. 10/.
Okay, so JAWS came up, and I hope you can hear that. And so with JAWS, everything that receives focus on the computer gets spoken back to the user. So I'm just going to show you a real basic, simple way. I'm going to open up Microsoft Word. I'm going to type some things into Microsoft Word. I'm going to have it read what I've typed, and then I'm going to close out of Microsoft Word to give you some experience with that. So I'm going to open up my menu, my Start menu.
Menu, search box, edit. Type text in this edit field or press up or down arrow to move through items. Natural Reader 13, 1 of 10, N. Microsoft Word 2010 sub-menu, 2 of 10, M. Enter, leaving menus, opening dash Microsoft Word. Document 1 dash Microsoft Word, print view, edit. H-E-L-L-O, space, H-O-W, space, A-R-E, space, Y-O-U, question.
Now I can read the whole thing, so I'm going to press my control down arrow.
Hello, how are you?
Or I can go back one word at a time with my control left arrow.
Question, you are, how, hello, how are you, question.
I can also go up to my menus. To get to my menus, I've got to know a keystroke. It's the Alt key.
Upper ribbon, home tab. To change ribbons, use left or right arrows. To navigate the current ribbon, use tab or shift tab, Alt followed by H.
So I want to get into my File menu, so I'm going to press the letter F, which you can see up over top of the File menu.
F. File menu, leaving menus, backstage view, file, save. To move through items, press up or down arrow, Alt followed by F, S.
And I'm just going to arrow up to go to the bottom of my menu to get to the exit.
Info group box, information about document. Before sharing this file, anyone can open, protect documents. Before anyone can escape, leaving menus, print view, edit.
I apologize about that. I pressed the wrong keystroke. So I'm going to hit my Alt key again.
Upper ribbon, home tab. To change ribbons, use left or right arrows. To
I'm going to
navigate
press the letter
current
F.
ribbon. F. File menu, leaving menus, backstage view, file, save. To move through items, press up or down arrow, Alt followed by F, S.
And then I'm going to hit my up arrow.
Exit. To move through items, press up or down arrow, Alt followed by F, X.
And then I'm going to press my Enter key.
Leaving menus, Microsoft Word, save button. To activate, press spacebar, Alt plus S. And, folder, items view multi-select list box, JAWS 16.0, 10/21/2015, 8:21 p.m. shortcut 2KB, 1 of 4.
So as you can see, I used JAWS to open up Microsoft Word. And then I got into Microsoft Word. I could type a sentence. I could read that sentence all at once, or I could go one word at a time. I could do characters at a time. And again, if people have used If people really need a screen reader, they probably had some experience with it before. But if they do need training or real specific training because of the vocational goal they're trying to get into or they're trying to pursue, you can then return them back to us. You can send them to us, and we can either we offer JAWS training or we can point them to someone in their local area who might be able to help them learn more about JAWS. And so JAWS, again, is a screen reading software that allows folks who are blind or very low vision to get access to the computer and be able to use all the tools, things like the internet, to be able to read PDF documents, to be able to read text documents there on the computer at the WorkOne. So I hope those 4 software packages, again, Windows Speech Recognition, Natural Reader 13, Windows Magnifier, and the JAWS screen reading software will make a big difference for folks as they use those workstations. So there you have it. This is the accessible workstation, the accessible technology, the hardware and the software that's going to make the WorkOnes, especially their computer systems, more accessible for folks with disabilities. Want to remind you, we've mentioned it throughout the training today, that we left you a few really helpful tools. The first thing we mentioned before is up on the computer system. You're going to find 2 folders on the desktop. One is called AT Guides. That's going to have quick reference guides and manuals for the software. Again, for the hardware, you're going to find some real basic information about what the device is, who it's going to help. If it's adjustable, it's going to tell you how to adjust it. For the software, you're going to find something like a top 10 list. So for those 4 software packages, we talked about JAWS, we talked about Natural Reader, we talked about Windows Magnifier, and we also talked about Windows Speech Recognition. For those 4 software packages, you're going to find kind of a top 10 guide on how to get access to it, how to use that software underneath the AT Guides folder. Secondary to those things, a little more in-depth things that are there, you're going to find a one-pager. A one-pager for hardware, a one-pager for software. Those two things are really helpful. I would encourage folks to print those out, keep those at their desks so they have a real quick reference guide. So if someone walks into your office and needs help on the computer systems and they have a particular need that one of those software packages could help or one of those hardware tools could help with, would be a great way for you to quickly glance at that just simply those one-pager, a one-page hardware overview, a one-page software overview to be able to kind of help folks out with those things. And then again, the other folder is we've grouped all of the assistive technology under one folder. It should be under something called AT folder, Assistive Technology folder on the desktop. That's where you should find Dragon. That's where you should find Windows Magnifier, Windows Speech Recognition, and Natural Reader. And so I am super excited about the possibilities and the energy that's been put behind this project. It's been a pleasure for us to work with DWD, Department of Workforce Development, and really all of the WorkOne centers to be able to improve the accessibility for folks with disabilities in those areas. So thank you for the opportunity, and we'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.